Hello everybody, welcome back to Teach Me to Science. My name is Saren and today I wanted to talk to you all about how I got to where I am in my scientific career. So today's video is kind of my journey into science video and I hope you enjoy it. Oh, okay, where to begin? I always really liked science, but there are a couple of very key memories that stick out in my mind when I think about what really got me interested in science in the first place. And they start out from when I was really young. Three memories of mine that I'm going to tell you from when I was really young that got me interested in science. So the first one was I had a science teacher in elementary school. I think I was in like third or fourth grade, who would come and we would make like terrariums in a bottle. So we would make a mini ecosystem that lived inside of this bottle. You know, it had worms and dirt and plants and all this cool stuff. And I remember she was showing us the worms and describing how the worms moved through the soil and how they lived in the soil. And she was telling us all these cool things about worms. And I thought it was super cool. And I didn't really want to touch them, but I wanted to learn everything she told me about the worms. So I thought that part was super, super cool. And then later on in high school, I think I was in 7th grade, the same professor was teaching us about glaciers and how glaciers deposit soil as they travel from one place to another, and also about how glaciers shape our landscape. So she was telling me all about glaciers and teaching about it, but none of it really made sense because we don't just have glaciers rolling through our backyards nowadays. So she did this cool example where she took a square block of ice cream and it had like chocolate chips and M&Ms and all kinds of candy inside, and she put it on top of a baking pan. Then she elevated one side of the baking pan and let the ice cream slowly slide down, and you could see it would leave little bits of chocolate chips and M&Ms as it slid down. And I thought it was so cool because she'd been teaching us about how glaciers deposit sediment as they move across our landscape. And it didn't really click for me until she did that experiment, or she did that example where the ice cream moved and left little bits as it went, and it was so, so cool to me. So that was the second kind of event in my early life before I went to college that got me interested in science. In high school, the last kind of straw that made me feel like I really wanted to go into science was I took an anatomy and physiology class, and we learned about the structure of neurons. And I thought drawing neurons was the coolest thing I'd ever done in my life. So I ran around my high school drawing neurons on chalkboards and whiteboards and on my paper all day long. For like 3 or 4 weeks, I just drew neurons all the time because I thought it was so cool. And that was kind of the last straw, I guess, for me. And I decided I needed to go into science. In my beginning of my undergraduate career, I started out as a biology major because I was bound and determined to go to medical school. Nobody was gonna stop me. I was so excited. And then my first year of undergraduate, I started a research project where I was a research assistant watering plants for an upperclassman who was doing research and going to graduate school soon. And I really enjoyed the research. It was a lot of fun. And a lot of people told me I was really good at it, but I was still set in my ways that I wanted to go to medical school. And my sophomore year, I got offered a position as a teaching assistant and a tutor for general chemistry. And so I thought, hey, these are more cool things to, pad my resume and make me look super awesome when I go to medical school. It wasn't until my second year of undergrad, my sophomore year, that I realized I had a love for chemistry and biochemistry. And that was kind of my turning point, I think. And the funny thing is, in high school, I absolutely hated chemistry. I hated chemistry. I didn't want anything to do with it. And then fast forward to my undergraduate career, I suddenly love chemistry. This was so weird to me. end of my sophomore year, I was still doing research. I was changing my major to biochemistry, but I was still pre-med. And that's when I started studying for the MCAT because I still wanted to go to medical school, even though at this point I had students who had all told me that they thought I was an awesome teacher and that they thought I should be a teacher someday. That's what they thought. They thought I should be a teacher. And I was like, no way. I don't want to be a teacher. I'm going to medical school. And I just have to laugh at myself at how stubborn I was about going to medical school. Like, in my mind, that's what I was doing. And anybody who was telling me to do otherwise was just trying to knock me down. Yeah, which is super funny because now I'm not going to medical school. I think another turning point for me in my undergraduate career was when I had started studying for the MCAT and realized that I hated memorizing things. It just seemed pointless to me. There's no reason to memorize it when I can understand it and apply it to other topics and have a good big picture idea. So when I was studying for the MCAT is when I kind of realized that medical school was not going to be for me. And so I kind of had a little bit of a crisis. I went back and forth. Do I really want to go to medical school? Do I not want to go to medical school? And so I talked with a lot of my professors, and they all told me that they thought I should get a PhD. And they thought that I would be an awesome professor and I'd be an awesome PhD student, and that's what they thought I should do. And so I decided to do an REU, which I've done many videos about my REU that I did, which is a research experience for undergraduates. And so if you are interested in learning about my REU specifically, I'll link the playlist above for you to go check that out. But basically, I did this REU because I wanted to decide if graduate school was the right path for me. And so I did the REU, and I loved doing research. I worked in cell culture, and cell culture was the coolest thing for me. It was the same kind of passion I felt when I was in high school and I was drawing that neuron all the time. I thought it was so cool. And so fast forward to my fall of my senior year, which was just this past fall, I had decided that I wanted to go to graduate school and I was gonna get a PhD, and that's what I had decided. So I applied and I got in, and now in the fall, upcoming after this summer, I'm going to the University of Connecticut to get a PhD, and things changed so drastically. So I guess the point of me telling you this story about how I ended up going from being bound and determined to go to medical school to finding a love of science and getting a PhD instead was that I wanted everybody who's watching this to know that there are alternative science careers outside of medicine, even if you love medicine. Like, I think medicine is super cool, but the difference is that I wanted to know the why behind everything in medicine. And when you're in medicine treating patients, you're not concerned with the why, you're concerned with the how to make people better. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, is that I wanted to know the why. So I guess the point of me telling my whole story about how I got to where I am in my science career is because I want everybody to know that when you're in your undergraduate, you can change your mind. I was bound and determined to go to medical school. I thought that was the only thing for me. And when I decided to change my mind, I felt guilty for a long time about changing my mind, and that's not necessary. You should feel free to follow your passion and change your mind. So the two takeaways that I really want people to learn from my story about how I got interested in science is that the first one being that there are alternative ways to explore science outside of medicine. So just talk to people, talk to scientists, talk to medical doctors. Just talk to as many people as you can and find out if that path is right for you, because if it's not, you'll figure it out very quickly. And then my second takeaway from this is that don't feel like when you're in undergraduate that you have to take a straight line to the end goal, which is that degree. You can take a zigzag here and learn about medical school, and then take a zigzag there and learn about getting a PhD. And I think that doing what you're interested in and passionate about is more important than getting to that end career, you know? So the fact that I found some passion in biochemistry was very exciting for me, even if it was a slight zigzag from my end goal, which was medical school at the time. Because I followed my passion of biochemistry, it ended up steering me in the right direction, which is a career that I'm actually excited about. So that is my story of how I ended up going from being pre-med to now being a graduate student at the University of Connecticut, and I hope you found it very enjoyable, I guess, and interesting. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you could, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon. Bye!